The accelerating relationship of defense between Armenia and India marks one of the most consequential geopolitical realignments in the South Caucasus since the end of Cold War. What appears on the surface to be conventional arms procurement deal is in reality the visible layer of deeper structural shift in power, dependency, and strategic orientation. Armenia's decision to pursue advanced Indian military system, culminating in the proposed acquisition of the Sukhoi 30 MKI, signals a deliberate break from a decade-long security model built almost entirely around Russia. This transformation cannot be understood in isolation. It must be read against the backdrop of regional conflict. The erosion of Russian power, the rise of new defense suppliers, and the increasing networked nature of modern military alliance, and most of the post-Soviet period era, Armenia's security doctrine rested on a single assumption that Russia would remain both a guarantor of territorial integrity and a reliable supplier of advanced military hardware. This assumption shaped Armenia's participation in Russia-led security frameworks, its basing arrangements, and its procurement decisions. Yet, over time, this dependency hardened into a strategic vulnerability. Russian weapon systems dominated Armenia's inventory. Russian training doctrine shaped its officers' corps, and Russian political calculation increasingly dictated what Armenia could and could not do militarily. The illusion of security persisted largely unchallenged until it collided with the realities of modern warfare in the South Caucasus. The 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh war exposed this vulnerability with brutal clarity. Azerbaijan's effective integration of drone, precision munitions, electronic warfare, real-time intelligence shattered Armenian defensive positions that was designed for an earlier era of conflict. More damaging than the battlefield losses was the realization that Russian intervention, long assumed to be automatic, was conditional and limited. Moscow's response was calibrated to its broad regional interests rather than Armenia's security needs. This moment marked the beginning of a profound reassessment in the Yerevan, a security based on political loyalty without operational reliability was no longer acceptable. The reassessment deepened in the years that followed. Russia's full-scale war in Ukraine dramatically reduced its capacity to export weapons, spare parts, and munitions. Even systems already delivered became difficult to maintain, while new deliveries were delayed indefinitely or cancelled outright. Armenia's experience with Russian-supplied combat aircraft became emblematic to this problem. Advanced platforms were delivered without the necessary weapons packages, logistical control, or political clearance to be used effectively in wartime. The result was a hollow force structure, impressive on paper, largely inherent in practice. This was in this strategic vacuum that India emerged as credible alternative. Over the past decade, India has quietly but systematically restructured its defensive industrial base, reduced dependency on foreign suppliers by building export-oriented production capacity. This transformation was not driven solely by commercial ambition, but by strategic necessity. India's long-standing rivalry with Pakistan, combined with supply chain vulnerabilities during global crisis, compelled New Delhi to prioritize indigenous designs, manufacturing, and integration across air, land, and missile forces. The outcome has been maturing defense ecosystems capable not only of meeting domestic requirements but also supporting long-term foreign partnerships. Armenia's engagement with India must be understood with this context. Unlike traditional arms supplier, India doesn't approach the Caucasus as a sphere of influence to be dominated or a bargaining chip in larger geopolitical negotiations. Instead, India's involvement is transactional, strategic, and largely free of historical baggage. For Armenia, this offers something Russia increasingly cannot: predictability. Indian systems come with defined upgrade pathways, clear logistic frameworks, and a political relationship that doesn't hinge on Armenia's subordination to a larger power regional agenda. The proposed acquisition of the Sukhoi 30 MKI is therefore not simply about replacing one fighter aircraft with another. It represents a shift in how Armenia conceives power itself. The Sukhoi 30 MKI is not merely an airframe, it's a modular platform designed to integrate modern radars, indigenous missiles, electronic warfare suites, and networked command systems. In an Armenian context, this means the potential for a genuine fictional air deterrent rather than a symbolic one. The ability to conduct beyond visual range engagement, resist electronic jamming, and sustain operations through reliable supply chain fundamentally alters Armenia's military calculus. This shift has direct implications for the regional balance of power. Azerbaijan's own air force modernization, anchored around the JF-17 Thunder, reflects a parallel but distinct strategic trajectory. Backed by Turkey and Pakistan, Azerbaijan had pursued cost-effective platforms optimized for integration with drones and precision strike systems. This model emphasizes quantity, rapid deployment, close alignment with Turkish operational doctrine. Armenia's turn toward heavier long-range platforms like the Sukhoi 30 MKI suggests a different approach. Fewer assets but with greater endurance, payload capacity, and deterrent value. The interaction between these two models will shape the future military balance in the South Caucasus. Armenia is likely to achieve a numerical parity with Azerbaijan, nor does it appear to be seeking outright air dominance. Instead, the objective is denial, making any future offensive costly, uncertain, and politically risky. In this sense, the Indian-Armenian defense partnership is best understood as a stabilizing force, not because it eliminates conflicts, but because it raises the threshold at which conflict becomes rational. Anyone, beyond the immediate Armenia-Azerbaijan jab, the geopolitical reverberations extend further. Russia's diminishing role as Armenia's primary security partner signals a broader contradiction of Russian influence in the Caucasus. This is not the result of a single diplomatic rupture, but of structural exhaustion. Moscow's resources are increasingly consumed by higher priority theaters, while its ability to enforce security guarantees without escalation has eroded. Each Indian system delivered to Armenia whether artillery, air defense, or aircraft represents not only a commercial loss for Russia but a symbolic one. It demonstrates that Russian security architecture is no longer exclusive or indispensable. The Turkey-Pakistan-Azerbaijan alignment adds another layer of complexity. This trilateral relationship is not merely ideological but operational, encompassing joint exercises, intelligence sharing, defense production for India, which maintains a continuous relationship with both Turkey and Pakistan. Armenia becomes a strategic counterweight. Supporting Armenia doesn't require India to deploy forces or enter formal alliances. It allows New Delhi to influence regional dynamics indirectly through defense diplomacy. This is a low risk, high impact strategy that aligns with India's broader approach to global power projection. At a systematic level, the Armenia India defense axis illustrates a large trend in international security. The fragmentation of traditional supplier client relationships, smaller states are no longer willing to tie their survival to a great power, particularly one whose capacity to deliver under pressure is uncertain. Instead, they diversify partnerships that combine military capability with political autonomy. India's emergence as a supplier in this environment reflects a redistribution of industrial and strategic power away from traditional arms exporters. The long-term consequences of this shift will depend on implementation rather than intent. Aircraft deliveries, training pipelines, maintenance of infrastructure, and doctrinal adaptation will determine whether Armenia's new capabilities translate into real deterrence. Yet, even before the first Sukhoi 30 MKI enters Armenian service, the psychological political effects are already visible. Armenia has signaled that it is no longer a passive consumer of security guarantees, but an active architect of its own defense posture. In this sense, the India-Armenia defense partnership is less about a single deal and more about a new logic of survival in a multipolar world. It reflects the decline of inherited alliances, the rise of capability-based partnership, and the growing importance of industrial resilience in national security. For the South Caucasus, a region long defined by frozen conflicts, asymmetric dependencies, this represents a meaningful departure from the past. For India, it marks a step forward recognition not just as regional power but as global supplier of strategic stability. Ultimately, the significance of this relationship lies not in hardware itself, but it symbolizes Armenia's turn to India's underscore a fundamental truth of contemporary geopolitics. Power today flows not only from territory or ideology, but from the ability to build, supply, and sustain complex systems under pressure. In choosing India as a partner, Armenia is better that reliability, adaptability, and strategic autonomy matters more than tradition. In doing so, it may be reshaping the future of the Caucasus in ways that extend far beyond the paths of fighter jets.